Today I want to tell you 5 sewing tools that I wish I had bought sooner in my sewing process. I'm by no means a professional. I would consider myself probably intermediate, but I have been sewing for a long time, close to 2 decades actually. But I didn't take it really seriously until about 5 years ago. But still at that point, I was reluctant and hesitant to invest a lot of money in sewing tools, just because I was always worried, well, what if I lose steam on this? What if I decide that I don't want to do this as much as I thought, and then I've sunk all this money into tools that I no longer use? Well, for the most part, the things on this list you're going to find are very affordable. Even if you're just getting started, most of these items, you're not going to be wasting a lot of money if you, a year from now, decide, maybe I don't like sewing that much. But these are the items that I think if I could go back in time, I would tell myself, just go ahead and spend the money on them. They're going to make your life so much easier. If you're new here, hi, my name is Melody. I make videos about creating a custom wardrobe, making costumes, and generally just being a crafty woman, the worst kind. And you can also catch me over on Instagram getting up to those same nefarious activities. The first item, or rather items, on my list are your sharps. Your sharp items. Now, fortunately, one of the first things I did buy about 5 years ago when I decided I wanted to do more sewing was a rotary cutter. I did buy like the cheapest one that Walmart had. I don't think I would recommend that, but a rotary cutter has just made life so much easier cutting out pattern pieces and whatnot. And then I found this one at the thrift store and I thought I would like to try a different brand. So rotary cutters are so helpful, especially cutting out fabric when you're working with pattern pieces, because I find that sometimes when you use scissors, you have to lift the fabric up a little bit and that can get wonky. That being said, oh my gosh, if you do not have a pair of designated fabric scissors, do yourself a favor and go get some, especially if you have a partner who is also crafty and is liable to just grab any pair of scissors that are lying around for their crafts. Don't use those scissors on your fabric. Get yourself a designated pair of fabric scissors. Threaten life and limb if anyone else should touch them. I did not have a pair of designated fabric scissors until a few years ago, and that has been a game changer. Likewise, I hope that this goes without saying, if you are sewing, please have a good seam ripper, because I don't know if anyone's let you in on this secret yet. If you're just starting out on your sewing, there is going to be so much seam picking and seam ripping in your future. Listen, maybe I'm just actually bad at sewing, but as far as I can tell, the best kept open secret among sewists is the amount of seam picking and redoing that we have to do, especially for someone like me who does a lot of thrift flips, and I'm utilizing already made garments where a lot of times to make sure I get the maximum amount of fabric out of each piece, seam picking is the best way to do it. So get yourself a really good seam picker. I think the cheap ones at Walmart, honestly, it's like $3 or $4. It's not expensive, just go get one. So sharps, make sure that you get good sharps, good sharp items. It really is not going to cost you that much to get a designated pair of fabric scissors, a good seam picker, and a rotary cutter, and it's gonna make your sewing experience so much easier. And some of you might be sitting there like, duh, Melody, these are obvious things, like why are you even saying this? Because I went without them for so long. All of the sewing that I did up through college and a little beyond that, I did not have these items. I might have had a seam picker that was like an old one that my mom had, but it wasn't sharp. I don't know, I made do. You can make do. I'm just saying these will make your life easier. I know there's someone else out there like me who is frugal to a point that they don't need to be, so I'm saying this for you. Just go get the scissors. Just go get them. Fabric marking items. Again, might be super obvious to some people, but for me it wasn't. I would just use regular graphite pencil or Sharpie, and I got by. I made it work. You definitely can make it work, but these have just made life so much easier. So I was using this little blue fabric marking pencil that, again, I think I just got from my mom, and it's the crappiest little thing. But then adding something like chalk and these water-soluble markers has really helped. The water washable ones, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You mark the fabric, and then when you no longer need that mark, you just rinse it away with water. The purple on this pen is disappearing ink. It has not disappeared from every single fabric. This is also washable with water, but I really like the purple because for most items that I've used this with, within 24 hours the mark is gone. It's amazing. It's so amazing. So this makes life so much easier for marking out patterns, marking where I want to make adjustments on things. I really recommend it. And I know that there are other marking tools that I probably could benefit from having. Like I was thinking of getting a chalk wheel, but I don't know if I really need that for the stuff that I'm usually doing. So please let me know if there are fabric marking implements that you like, that you use, that you would add to this list. But just in general, upgrade from your graphite and Sharpie. It's well worth it. Again, not expensive. They're like a few bucks each. So the third item slash category on this list is something that I have found really helpful for working with tricky or delicate fabrics, and that is your basic quilter's clip. I think I only bought these 2 years ago maybe, and they have been so helpful, not just for delicate fabrics, but also if I am doing a fitting on myself and I need to mark where I want to take something in. Sometimes I don't want to use your regular pins. Oh, should I add that in with the sharps? Get yourself a good set of pins. I hope that goes without saying. Doesn't hurt if they're really cute and you just like looking at them. Anyway, so when I don't want to use pins because the fabric is delicate or I'm doing a fitting on myself and don't want to be stabbed, these quilting clips have been excellent for that. And along with that, if you're using a really delicate fabric, I would recommend getting some kind of tearaway interfacing. I actually bought the tearaway interfacing for embroidery, but I can't get it to work. You're supposed to be able to iron it on the fabric, and it's supposed to stay on the fabric, and it doesn't. But it is good as a tearaway stabilizer to just sandwich between 2 layers of the delicate fabric. You can also use tissue paper, like gift wrap tissue paper. That'll definitely work in a pinch, but having some designated sewing stabilizer has been really helpful for me personally. So, quilting clips, not just for quilters, because your girl don't quilt. The fourth item on this list is a big cutting board. If you've been here around this channel for a while, you might be like, that looks new. That's because it is. I bought this a few weeks ago. I don't know why I had been putting off this purchase. So what I've been using for the last like 5 years, excuse you, has just been this little desktop one, essentially. And this is great. This is fine for most things. But every time I would go to Walmart, I would eyeball the giant cutting board that was in the back with the sewing stuff, and I kept putting it off because I was like, oh, I don't know, it's expensive. It was like $32. That's a little bit expensive, but not for how useful it is, because usually what I do is I lay out my fabric on the floor and I cut things there. And it's so much easier to have a cutting surface underneath where I can use my rotary cutter for the entire piece rather than having to keep shuffling around my little cutting board. It's just so much easier. I know that some people will say, oh, $30 isn't that much. Why are you fussing about it? But for some people it is. And for a lot of my life, $30 has been a lot. But recently I just decided, you know what? I think that $30-odd is gonna be worth it to just have a bigger cutting surface, especially since I do not have a cutting table. I don't have space in here for a cutting table. And I typically just lay my stuff out on the floor anyway. This definitely feels like a silly thing to have been putting off for so long, considering how much sewing I've been doing. Again, just like everything else on this list, you can get by without it, but so far, the couple of times that I've used this since buying it, oh my gosh, totally worth it. And the final item on my sewing tools I wish I would have bought sooner list. This one is expensive. Big Bertha herself. My overlock machine. Actually, no, her name's not Big Bertha. It's not even a her. No, because I named them after the brothers from Full Metal, because they're brother machines. So everything else on this list so far has been relatively affordable, and I think if you are just starting out, I would not hesitate about buying those items because they're not too big of an investment. This, however, I would say hold off if you have any doubt that sewing is going to be a long-term hobby for you. There are so many ways to finish a seam that don't require an overlocker, but for me personally, because I do so much sewing and I like to make a lot of daily wear items that I want to last a long time, this for me just took things up, not even to the next level, it took things up like 5 levels, and I just feel so much more confident in what I'm able to produce and how clean and polished it looks. That being said, I only got this 2 years ago, so I really waited to make sure that I was going to be continuing to do a lot of sewing. I wanted to make sure that this was a good investment for me, and it has been. It was about $200. That's why I say it's not cheap, it is an investment, but it has been absolutely worth it. So I would not go back in time and tell myself to buy the overlocker right away, but I definitely could have bought it earlier in my process. And one final item that I have not bought yet, but I think I probably should have already, is a set of Tailors tools, like a tailoring ham, and it's like a block or something, basically stuff for pressing and finishing seams. I really want to invest in a set of those because I think that will take my garment finishing to the next level and really just make stuff look crisp and professional. I've been, again, getting by without it and doing weird things like using the side of my slipper as a tailor's ham. Kind of risky because I could end up melting the sole of my slipper, but you do what you gotta do. So that is the next thing on my sewing wish list that I think will end up being part of this list of things I wish I'd bought sooner. I would love to know down in the comments what you guys would recommend for someone who is either starting or early in their sewing process, or even for someone like me who's at an intermediate level. What are some things that we should be looking to add to our sewing tool repertoire? What are some things that really made your sewing process easier that you wish you had bought sooner? That being said, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave a scissors emoji down in the comments, and don't forget to go follow me over on Instagram. I have been posting slightly more regular updates, and I'm trying to show a little bit more behind the scenes and more of my process, stuff that I'm not filming here for long form videos. And let me know if there are any other topics that you would like me to cover for like a shorter talking head video on YouTube. So thank you guys for hanging out with me today. Subscribe if you'd like to hang out again, and I will see you next time. Bye!